Welcome back to Diablo's Laboratorium Emporium. My name is Diablo, and today, today I wish to, let me zoom out here a little. Okay, well, I want to start my, I want to continue my design of the Blue Science project. The ginormous Blue Science project. It's okay, we anticipated this. Let me turn this off, and let's find out. Hey, I think I'm still at speed 1. Yeah, look at that. Let's go back to speed 5. It's a lot nicer to walk that way large distances. Let's have a look, see. Because I think I was building somewhere around... Stuff has been placed, so we need to clear that out first. Because obviously... realize that, yes, there are holes in this design here because of the lake, for instance, and we're going to have that the same way here. Don't really mind that because I have the blueprints, the completed blueprints for them, so it should not be a problem. Let's see, what else? There's nothing here. There's a little bit over here. Okay. Let's just clean this up. Yeah, and then there was a little bit up here. Oh, there's a lot up here. Yeah, that's fine. That is fine. Obviously, I'm not using my robots because that would mean they would just place it somewhere else. And that would be silly. So I also don't mind that this blueprint is not, or rather this ghost is not complete here. Basically because I am using this more now for a measuring stick than for anything else. Okay, let's check. There's something here. There's a wall there. Why the heck is there a wall there? Anyway, it's more of a measuring stick right now than anything else. You know, once I actually have everything, it's to determine the width of the tracks from each other. We will know where the lakes are in regards to the entire factory, and we can then start to block off parts of the lake to use for water in our oil setup, for instance. So for now, as I said, I don't really mind that it's not completely complete. So all I need is a distance measurement, which, you know, let's just do something about the same, which was this. Looks about the same, right? It might be one wider. That's fine. That's fine. If we can get it as close to each other as we can, that would be very nice. It all depends on how big we are going to build the rest of this stuff. Okay, so next thing we need in our blue setup, because we have our chemical plant here, our oil refineries, our huge plastic setup is here, and the setup that produces enough sulfur is right over here. For the plastics, of course, we need to input our coal, yes, and so the next thing we need, if we look at Blue Science, there we go. We've got the sulfur, we've got the next thing is red chips, and red chips take plastics. Now we already have plastics, but red chips also take copper cable. Now we also need green chips, and green chips also use copper wiring, copper cable. So we're going to need like a butt-ton of copper cable. Now, I could design a factory that has the copper cable capability built into it, but I find that once you actually get to these kinds of numbers and you really want to optimize the usage of the copper cable you're producing, it tends to be a lot more efficient to just turn all your copper plates into copper cable in large batches in a large factory, and just use the copper cable on a belt to, or put the copper cable on a belt to wherever you need it. The advantage of that is you can more accurately and efficiently use the copper cables at the spot that they really are needed, because you can divide and you can balance and all that kind of stuff. The downside, of course, of that is that plates, copper plates, are, you know, a copper plate on a belt. However, one copper plate makes 2 copper cables. So effectively, you need twice as many belts to distribute the same amount of raw materials. So having copper cable on the main bus, for instance, is not that good of an idea, because it just uses more space, and it needs a lot more space, like twice as much. So normally I wouldn't do it, but in these large quantities, I would rather have more efficiency in my or be more capable of a better balance between all the sections of the factory that need copper wiring, and be efficient in that way than have less belts. So there. Okay. Now smelting for copper, I mean, I'm not going to be bothering too much with how that's going to work. I mean, we've got plenty of examples. I'm not going to use that one. Plenty of examples on how this can be done well, or rather how this just works. Let's just face it, this just works, right? I've already calculated this. I've already done the tests on this, and whether it's iron or copper, that really doesn't matter. Yeah, that really doesn't matter, because they are the same product in essence, in speed and what they produce. They are exactly the same. So if it's copper or iron, it doesn't matter. The setup for this is going to be the same. So if I then just go to my blueprints, because I already made this ahead of time, there we go. You can see that I've just copied what we had up there, and let me just centralize this on this. Obviously, I don't, as you can clearly see, I have not done anything to the train station, because basically the train station is not that important right now. No, I need to be on 2 like this. Yeah, the train station is not important right now, because that, you know, half of it I can't even do, because I don't know if I want to destroy this water right here, because I might need it later on. Probably not, but you never know, right? That's the point. You never know. So I don't want to destroy any water as of yet. So I'm not going to build this train station. We know how that works. We know how easy it is to do. And once I actually once I actually place the final product somewhere, I'm going to build that up, but have a slew of robots do the work for me, and it won't be a problem. So this is our smelting area. Obviously, as I said, same as before, it's the exact same thing. It's a copy of this. So we go to the next part. The next part is copper wiring. Now, copper wiring took me a while to, let me zoom in a little. Yeah, here we go. Copper wire took me a little while to figure out, to get that, not, you know, it's not a difficult recipe. That's not, you know, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is copper wire, if we look at it, is very, very hungry. Like seriously hungry, seriously fast, half a second for 2 items, and it only eats 1. So that's 2 per second for 4 output every second, right? So I was experimenting with having just one, having like we normally would start, right? You'd get a machine that would have a belt on this side, like so, whoosh, and a belt output on that side, have some beacons around it, put some beacons inside of it, and just see how well that works. Well, that didn't work quite as well as I thought, because as you can imagine, because it is so fast, production, I mean, this arm obviously couldn't keep up. So I started to do, well, maybe I need a second or a third arm to feed that in and see how fast we can output. Well, obviously with one factory right here, the input of this was fine. Okay, we had 3 arms inputting, so that's 36 every, what is it, second and a half or something? I don't know. not that much time. So way more than we could ever need for this machine, and the machine just worked fine. It worked really fast. Problem then became, okay, I can't output enough. The machine works until it gets full, and then it just the arm is too slow to output. So basically I could just add more output, right? Problem is, the first arm will output 12, 12, 12, 12, putting a lot of stuff on one side of the belt. The second arm will fill the gaps between that, and the third arm won't have anything to do, and still we wouldn't be able to unload whatever we are building inside the assembler. It's just too damn fast. So I started experimenting with, well, what if I go underneath, like so, at 2 spots. So then I could output one there, output one there, and output one there. So I have 3 arms unloading onto 3 different belts, right? That got me a lot closer to what I actually wanted to have. Unfortunately, you don't only want to have one of these factories in every, well, it wouldn't be a row technically, but you know what I mean. You want to have 2, maybe 4 or 6, depending on how much stuff you can actually input. And you know, if you input a full blue belt of copper, how many of these machines, if I copy this, how many of these machines can I actually feed? Well, the final answer that I got to was about 6. All right. The problem I ran into, however, is the same problem I had before. If I have, come on, Q, thank you. Oh, there was a thingy there. If I have belts here and these undergrounds here, the first arm is going to do 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. The second arm is going to fill in the gaps that are there. The third arm might sometimes have something to place if these two are like not perfectly synced on top of each other, then this one has something to do, but that is very rare. And the fourth one, let alone the fifth and the sixth one, don't do anything to output onto this belt, which, you know, takes away from the output that this factory can do, because we need the speed, remember? So this arm is now definitely not doing anything. The fifth one and the sixth one also are definitely not outputting. So they can only output to these ones. But they run into the same problem. Because why? Well, simply because these 2 arms put on these 2 belts, these 2 arms do the same thing, and we run into the same restriction again. Yes, it is that fast. So I had to think about that solution, which I did. I got there. But then I found that because I was now able to, and of course this was 6 long. So let me just demonstrate that. It was 6 long like this. Then I found that because I made these 6 machines faster, I wasn't able to input enough, or I wasn't able to feed them all fast enough from this one belt. So I had to change this into a weave with red and blue, which changed that. Of course, I still had this problem of the belts that I just explained, so I found a way around that by having basically be the first 2, these 2. Let me rephrase. I found a way around the filling of the belts, which blocked everything behind it, by thinking another way. And the way I solved it was by not wanting to have a full belt per se. So these 2, if I unload onto this side of the belt, would not completely fill that belt, right? There would be gaps there. And what I was trying to do all the time is trying to fill up that gap and then trying to find another way to get rid of my stuff, the copper cable. What I decided to do was let that go and not have a full belt and resolve the balancing of that later, not actually at the production, to get these machines to go as fast as they can and to produce as much as they can, as efficiently as they can. So what did I do? Well, these two can only unload there. Yeah, but what do we do with these two then? And, you know, we still have these two here. Okay, well, I can do... It's not really correctly placed right now, but just ignore that. I can do something like this. And now these two unload into this side track, whoosh, 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 and output just here. Nothing else, just there. This is their only output. Of course, we still have these ones, which we will get to in a moment. The next two, I can do the exact same thing to, right? Except I won't... oops, so that's this. This one unloads here, this one unloads here, but now where do I go, right? Now where do I go? Well, actually, you know what? I'm just going to leave this like this and not output there. So now we've got two of them outputting on top of this one, two outputting on top of this one. So we get half a belt of this here out here. Actually, no, I'm doing that wrong. Hang on. This was this was my intermediate step. I almost forgot. Because what I did, obviously, was side load here. So these two unload onto the top of this belt, but get switched over to the bottom of this belt. These two unload onto the top of this belt, so the output here is a not full belt of wire. Cool? Cool. Of course, that in turn means I can get that whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Oops. Out here by doing this, and now I can use that as half a belt. Right? Cool. So we've got a full belt out here, we've got half a belt out here. How do we do that for the middle part here? Well, basically we do the same thing. Instead of going down the middle here, we go down and out. Oops, that was not entirely what I intended, but that's okay. There we go. We go down and out. We can join with this one, outputting here. And I should say that I kind of don't remember how this fit all together, but I think it was just like this. So forgive me if that. I've got the completed thing, of course. And that way we could sideload this again and have another full belt coming out. And this one outputs in the middle, completely like this. Something like that. I think I made these flat, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I think I made these flat like this. And then we get these outs here. And of course we still have an out that we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, 6. Somewhere around here. I'm just gonna guesstimate something like this. I'm not entirely sure how I did the middle bit, but you get the idea, right? The point is we ended up with 6 outputs, of which 3 of them already have 2 sides loaded, and 3 of them only have half a side loaded, because these 2 basically load straight onto belts out, so they only load on one side. Of course, that's an easy fix, because we can just turn this one down, and now we have a full belt here as well. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 full belts, and half a belt here left over. Also not that hard to solve in the end. Of course, it took me a while to think about it, but once you've, finally gotten to the point where you are, when you're 2 hours into this, which I was, you find that you can do just something like, and this was an underground, I think. Nope. Sorry, something like this. and then you've got one out there. We get an underground from here, from here to here. This one goes straight, this one goes straight, and this one goes straight. Now the only problem that I really ran into, because I thought, well, I've got these completed setups, and this one is the only one that we need to do a weird thing to make sure it side loads, or rather that it loads one line on both sides. One thing that I found was that if I only did something like this, for instance, so I joined whatever comes out here to the belt that we already have double loaded here, so both sides loaded here, somehow that did not, it slowed both of them down, because this splitter wants to take from this side and that side, that side, that side, that side, that side, which in turn means that this one, which is, you know, being fully loaded, or nearly fully loaded, will slow down, because half of the time it needs to pick from something that's coming in from here and going out whatever here. I don't care. So obviously the first thing I did is change the splitter function to prioritize this output and to only use this output, or rather, sorry, prioritize this input and only use this input when I actually, you know, have space there. So for the gaps that would eventually happen, fill this in. Unfortunately, this arm started producing as fast, obviously as fast as the rest. The problem with that, however, is that, by the way, this was also, never mind, I will get to that later, I will show you that later. The problem with that is that this started to back up, meaning that this arm wasn't outputting, meaning I didn't have enough outputs to satisfy the need for this, the speed of this assembly machine, which meant that this assembly machine would start filling up, which meant I was losing production. So in the end, I ended up with something of the following setup. Like this, and like, oh, I need to remember how I did that. No, not that one, that one. And then I believe something like this. No. Now I'm starting to doubt myself, which is never good. It was something like this. Right, no. It was this, and then, you know what? Let me grab the real thing, because I could spend another 2 hours just trying to remember how I did it, or I could just build the entire thing and show you how I did it. What it effectively did, because I started out with this, right? Divide amongst the belts that are coming out here, meaning that I can output more to more belts and therefore have a greater output for all of them. Unfortunately, it didn't work that way. I found that I still got slowdown on all my belts, and when you're producing these kind of numbers this fast, a tiny slowdown has a huge impact on your production value. So I went from around 10,000 every minute by just unloading directly onto void belts. That's the mod I use to test stuff that eats. That's just a belt that eats anything you put onto it. It voids it. So if I did that onto these arms, so they could unlimitedly unload, I would get around 10,000, you know, the maximum amount what I could get per minute, which was around 10,800 production out of these 6 factories or assemblers. As soon as I started trying to, let's call it balancing this out with these, just these 3, or rather only the one splitter here where I started, I noticed a significant drop to like 8,000. It instantly started producing like 2,000 every minute less. 2,000 per minute less is a lot. It's like a serious amount of production that I would have to extra build. So I wanted to have it as optimally as possible. And so I did. And the solution for that basically became something like this, I believe. And I'm going to guesstimate this. And then have these two output priority here. But once this gets full, the second one automatically puts it there anyway. And it's something like this, which made it actually output at a maximum rate. Now, having explained what we are about to see, because I know it's quite a lot. And I know I've been talking for a while, but I think it was important for me to explain what was actually happening once I actually put down what I've designed, so you know what's going on. And I'll explain a little quirk of that system as well a little later. So as you can see, I have this thing here. Now, all my calculations that I've done have told me that I need, and this is no joke, around 100 belts, or a little over 100, I think it was 119 belts of copper wire to feed all my blue chips and to feed all my red chips. So that's quite a lot, right? That's serious numbers. I did a lot of balance testing. I did a lot of checking just by building the thing that you see right here in the blueprint and seeing how much I need to output. That informed the amount of smelters I had for the copper plates, and that informed the size of my train station and everything. But this is actually 128 belts, balanced belts of copper wire output. It is 48 copper plates input, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check that real quick, because I could be saying something that's a lie. It could be, it's a 1 to 2, so it has to be 64. No, it was 48. I was right. I was 48. Because of the efficiency of the modules that is in there. Whoops, I need to go over here. Because of the efficiency of the modules that is in there, you need less. It's not a 1 to 2 ratio anymore. So I've got 48 belts going in, 24 going up, 24 going down. And then I have the design that you just saw. And everything comes together in a whole bunch of 16 belt balancers. I chose to do it this way. As you can see, the two main areas where the assemblers are on top and at the bottom, and I go to the middle and out to the right. I chose to do it this way instead of having just two of these factories left to right instead of top to bottom, and having two separate exits, because I felt it aesthetically nicer, and I think it might, and I have no basis for this, but I think it might also in the end be easier to connect everything else, like the green chips and the red chips, if everything just has a singular exit point on the right hand side. So that's why I chose to build it like this. Now, let's place this in the right spot. As you can see, it's rather large, which is, which is a good thing. I need to make sure this is in the right spot. I can't see. I need to zoom in a little. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. Okay, so we still have, obviously, this giant lake in the middle. Again, don't care, guys. I have the blueprint, so that's not going to be bothersome to me. Now, if we look at this setup line that we have here, as you can see, as I said, I had to do a wave of two separate lines, so blue and a red line, to be able to input stuff fast enough into these 6 factories to actually have that work. Oh, I said the other one was going down. Well, I went up for this one, so forgive me for that. Let's start with the up arm. The up arm just unloads onto this one. The next one does the same thing. The next one does the same thing, like I said. Then we have a third one that fills out that line and puts it on the bottom of this one. We have one outputting here, and that is also contributing to the bottom of this line. So these two, I was saying that incorrectly, sorry. These two are doing the top of this line. These two are doing the bottom of this line. So this output has a top and a bottom. Then you see the middle bit, where both of these arms unload onto this belt and go around here. We skip this one for now. We go out, and we go out, right? So we have these two filling nearly a blue belt. They won't make it full, but nearly. Same thing goes for the next two, except we go down and out, so we get a full, nearly full belt of of copper wire on blue belt here. And as I said, the last two are just outputting straight down the middle to the right. They don't go up, they don't go down, they're just 3 arms. I mean, remember, these guys also have 3 arms, right? These have just 2 belts to put it on. These get 3 belts to put it on. Just straight out here. Now, here comes the really interesting part. As I said, this is what it looks like. This was the best way to get the most throughput. As I said, this can produce 10,800 copper cable per row. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of copper cable being assembled. But if I hadn't when I hadn't put these 2 last splitters here, which actually have a output priority just for those, so we can keep this one clean. If I hadn't put these ones here, I noticed that these things dropped. Or when I hadn't put these ones here, I noticed that the production for this line dropped from 10,000 something to 8,000 something. So a drop of 2,000 production, which is quite significant. And I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out why. I mean, technically, this splitter, because we have input priorities here and here, would be able to exit its stuff either on this side or this side, whence there is a gap, right? And we do that another time right here. We have an input, so we get a full belt of stuff here because we are guaranteed that, right? We get some stuff here with gaps. We get some stuff here with gaps on both sides. This one has the priority, meaning that both of these and the third one go through here and onto this belt. So this belt should be full no matter what. Anything else that's too much gets pushed onto this side of the belt because it's priority, but it's not like this one a must, right? So that gets pushed to this side of the belt. So we should see with these just these two that we have a full belt on this side as well. But what I noticed is that doesn't happen. I got lots and lots. I got a full belt here and lots of gaps over here, even though we've got nearly a full belt going in here and some leftovers going in here. And the same on the other side. And I didn't understand why. Until I put down, just as a, nearly an act of desperation, I put down these two and added these splitters behind it so that anything, because I also saw that this was backing up. And I thought, okay, well, if it can't do, this was my paradox. I had stuff backing up here, but I still had gaps on this belt here, which I could not explain. So I figured, all right, if it can't go through to the side, then it might as well go through straight and then onto the belt. And that worked. That worked deliciously. And then I still had my 10,800 production and full outputs on all the belts, on the 4 belts going out, which also was a thing that I needed to do. I needed to go from 6 to 4 because everything, it gets me full belts, nearly. No, actually, it gets me full belts without stoppage anywhere in the system or blockage. And I don't have 6 outputs. I have 4 outputs, which is a much nicer thing to have when you are talking about a 4 belt, 8 belts, or 16 belt balancer. All right. Well, we do that a couple of million times, and then you get like stupid amounts of what the heck? Oh, oops. Hang on. This one I want to keep. Obviously, as you can see, I was testing stuff, and I kind of didn't remember. I kind of forgot to get rid of my half of my testing stuff, so I probably have that on this side as well. Let me check. Yeah. I didn't clean up my stuff. Sorry about that. And as I said, there was one quirk that I couldn't go work around, which was kind of annoying. As you can see over here, where we started, we've got our input at the bottom and our output at the top, or the middle, or wherever. But the input is at the bottom. That's the point. Normally, I would grab this as a blueprint, flip it over, and just use it that way. Unfortunately, once I did that, because you can see that the input is at the top now. And when I would flip it, obviously the input would be at the bottom instead of at the top. But when I did that, the problem was that because we are going the other way, arms are putting it on the other side, everything stopped working because I couldn't make this. Well, not everything stopped working, but my problem became that this became longer because I couldn't sideload this anymore. Obviously, because when I flip it, everything's putting it on. This one would be turning that way. It was a whole thing, trust me. And I couldn't sideload this anymore. So I would have to sideload this and use this as an exit for this. But that means I would have to move this up because I wouldn't have enough room. Yada, yada, yada. Long story short, I had to keep it the way it is and rotate it instead of flipping it. And that's why this input is not symmetrical, which irks me to the bone. And these inputs are not lined up with the other side because obviously this is at the bottom and this is at the top. I could obviously have this at the bottom and make this thing quite a bit bigger because it had to be like 2 belts bigger, right? So it would stick out further, which means this would not be possible. It would have to go further back. It would not be equidistant from each other, etc., etc. I could have done that, but I didn't want to because that looked even stupider. So that is the little quirk that this thing has. But, ladies and gentlemen, there we are. Obviously, it's the same on this side. We get bottom fed here and top fed here because I had to rotate. I couldn't flip. And then we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 belt balancers for a total of 128 belts of stuff going out, which is kind of ridiculous. I love it. So there we have it. That is how I got to my copper wire build, or rather design, I should say, because it's not been built yet. But all of this, remember, all of this, it's a new way of working. It's a new way of thinking. It's a new way of measuring stuff. I am going to be building ghosts of everything. Like I've explained before, I'm going to build ghosts of everything. I am going to determine from all of the sciences what the widest science top to bottom is. And it's probably going to be purple or yellow. I mean, that seems more logical because, you know, more stuff or something like that. I'm going to measure that out, and then finally, once we have all our designs ready, we are going to measure out where we are from this starting line, because I'll keep this starting line. We're going to measure out where the distance for that widest science area would stop. That's going to be a common throughput rail to the back for pickup, for mines, for whatever. That's going to be a common line on both sides. And then we're going to measure the next one, and then we're going to measure the next one. And those are going to be our common lines from middle to back. And in between those are going to be the science areas. So that is the idea. I know I've explained this before, but for those who missed it, there you go. So that's why I'm doing everything in ghost form right now. Well, I would have done that in ghost form anyway, because you need to place it in the right spot, but that's beside the point. All that's left for me to do right now, well, besides building all the green chips, red chips, and the, what was the last thing again? Oh, right, the new engine units. Well, they're not new, but the icon is new, and I like it a lot. Is get a iron smelting setup, which has to be quite big, I think, because green chips take iron, and the engine units need iron, steel, and gear wheels. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of iron. So probably maybe even 2 train stations worth of iron. I might have to do some calculations on that. But that is what I'll do next time. For now, I'm going to say thank you to my patrons for sponsoring this channel. It helps, it motivates. Thank you very much. And to anyone else, I'll say thank you very much for watching. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel. Comment down below if you have any suggestions or ideas. My name is Diablo, and I will see you next time.